be very courageous and ask yourself, what would be there if your problem was gone? How could you tell, like in your body, emotionally, what would change? And then you might say, yeah, I would be less tense. Okay, but what would be there instead of the tension? And then it's like, oh, I think I would feel more, like my chest would be a bit more open, my neck would be more relaxed, and there would be energy flowing through my back. And then discovering that, okay, and when your chest is open, what thoughts are going through your head? Yeah, I would feel more free, I would have more possibilities. In the moment you inquire about what would be there if your problem was gone, you simultaneously inquire about your potential.
This is a simple way of describing healing, and you don't need to look in the past for that, because all the information is in your body anyways, and is in the present moment, and is in your life, encoded in your relationships with your parents, with your partner, with your friends, in your behavior, everyday behavior, in what stresses you. You know, this was one of the main questions we had in the intake form for the emotional release training. It's like, what causes the most stress? That you don't need a method. You look at that and you see what your body does, how your body reacts.
Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Bypassers podcast, today with Jannick and me, Tim. I feel really good after this episode. We talked about so important things. We talked about probably the most important misconception that you might carry when it comes to healing, and that keeps you actually looping in your trauma and in your pain. And we talked about very practically about how you can leave these loops, how you can recognize them, and how you can feel better on your healing journey. And some often overlooked little changes in your perception of yourself when it comes to trauma healing and your body and somatics and living a good life. So that's what you can expect in this episode. We hope you enjoy it and have fun. So I recently learned that there is a point on my healing journey in which I'm fully immersed in right now, where it's getting less and less about looking in the past, like doing inner child work, doing like trauma work, journaling, all of these things, like basically digging in my past to see what needs to be healed, and potentially also what's wrong with me, like why am I reliving all of these patterns that are causing me so much pain. I'm in a point in my life right now where I do this less and less. And what happens automatically currently is that things get very, very practical. And it's so relieving to me because the common thing that I did, which was also fueled by what people talk about on Instagram, like pop psychology, and everyone is telling you like you need to heal and you need to do these exercises. And at some point I was just like, like doing the exercises got more stressful than the trauma they tried to heal. Or like, you need to do this and that and this, you need to understand this. And at some point I was like, this is just way too much. Please, everyone back off. And then I inquired, and I've listened to my body and sensed into what was meaningful and what felt right to me. And turns out that looking into the past in this stage of my life, and maybe also for the future, is not exactly what I need, but it more feels like I want to look into the future and I want to make real practical decisions that bring me closer to the future that I desire. For example, if I observe a pattern in me, or I do things that are not contributing to my well-being, instead of journaling and doing the self-inquiry work, I'm asking like the very simple question, can I just stop doing that? And maybe that will solve the problem. And that to some degree is it's not advice for everyone. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that on a healing journey that there are certain stages, and there will be a point where you leave the notion that you need to heal, you start doing the exercises less, and you more transition into living your life and radically cutting out everything that doesn't feel like you and that is causing you like friction energetically and also emotionally, where it gets not stoic, but it's like I've discovered my self-worth through all these exercises. I've removed everything that is not my self-worth, and I'm like, whenever something tries to cover that light that I've uncovered in the healing process, I'm like, I can ask myself, where is this coming from, blah blah blah, or I can just remove whatever is blocking the light. Obviously that it sounds like very black and white thinking, but it's not. Obviously there's nuances and all of that, but like I said, to me it's such a relief to feel that I know what I want in life and I just go for it, like inviting this, if you will, masculine way of looking at things. And weirdly enough, it made me more love myself even more, in a sense of I respect myself so much in all of these decisions and the simplicity in which I make decisions and in which I approach myself and life. And it made me weirdly also more emotional and vulnerable and more open. So that's sort of what I want to talk about. We talked about this quite a few times in the past, that we discussed what healing actually means, if there's such thing as being fully healed, if it ever stops, if the healing journey is like an ongoing thing, because trauma is just like a never-ending pit. And yeah, in the stage that I'm in right now, I feel like I don't claim that I'm fully healed or anything. It's just like, oh, okay, there's this simplicity that comes when I realized I don't need to do more of the stuff that I used to do in the past years. And it feels amazing.
Yeah, that's that's so powerful what you are discovering there. And to make this podcast practical as well, like your life that is becoming more and more practical and making those decisions. What do you think? Who, you said this advice is not for everyone. Who is it for then? How do you know that you might be approaching a point where it's time to change your approach to healing from over focus / focus on the past and on the trauma and on, sometimes maybe the stories as well, and you switch to okay, I want to be authentic, I want to make good decisions, I want to build a future that is aligned with my truth, with myself. How do you know? Who is it for?
So, three things come to mind. The first thing is that people, like, it's very easy to loop in the pain that you experience. And the more you look into what's quote unquote wrong with you, like whatever trauma you're carrying, into all of the dark stuff, the more you create a shadow of the light. Like in the podcast, we talk a lot about the shadow that's created when you have too much of the light, too much of the joy, too much of the high frequencies and whatever. But actually, it's the other way around. Like whatever you emphasize creates a shadow of its opposite. And if you're emphasizing and you're over focusing on trauma and all the dark stuff, the more you're like pushing away simplicity, ease, and just the essence of I'm born into this life, and what's the best thing I can make of it. And to me, it's like, it's almost a bit silly to say anything, but I want to have like a good time. I want to be joyful. And I'm almost, this may be controversial or I may sound like a hypocrite, but it feels like you're more healing towards also allowing in the joy, almost healing towards joy and wholeness and all of that. So I think you can recognize when you're like, just really openly ask yourself, am I looping in my pain? Like, do I know what gives my life meaning? Do I know what I actually want for myself? Like, let's assume like all of these healing practices that you do, they already worked. what would be there then? Like, what's the life that you're actually aspiring to have if you were already healed? And this is a super powerful question that gets asked, like, that not a lot of people ask, especially if you're listening and you're like on your self-healing journey. People, tell you, especially if you scroll through Instagram, people educate you a lot about what's going on with you. And at some point, it's really important to let that go, because the belief that you need to heal becomes a roadblock on your healing journey in of itself. So that's super important. And the second thing it actually escaped me. So, but that's the general point, I would say.
Yeah, it's the maybe it will come to mind later if it's important, but I think it's the also about recognizing the utility always. I mean, this is a big part of parts work as well, and like recognizing especially if we ask ourselves the questions, okay, you said you just did this, and then the immediate question comes to mind, okay, how did you do it? And then like, how do you recognize this? How do you move to this new approach? Because, if I play the devil's advocate here, it'll be saying something like, yeah, you just gonna decide that, right? I can't decide that. I've experienced like many bad things in the past, and these emotions just come. I'm not in control of them. Like, they control me. So I need to feel them, like feel them, like feel your emotions to heal. Feeling is healing. So I need to like stay there and feel through all of that. And once I've done that, then that's my liberation. And then you're like coming here into this podcast and saying like, oh, there's actually something that's called looping. And so that's why I say one way out is also recognizing and becoming conscious of the utility that this serves you, because our mind, our system is always seeking safety. So like everything we do, we always do the things that feel most safe. And for a lot of people, joy doesn't feel safe. For a lot of people, making practical decisions that will actually like may improve their life doesn't feel safe. But what feels safe is looping within these kind of emotions and always like digging deeper. And there is something that's called like a pleasure pain cycle. So you are in the pain of these emotions, and then you experience pleasure because you have a big relief, a big like catharsis of your emotions, a big expression somehow, or you go to a retreat or you do psychedelics or whatever, and it's like, oh yes, like now everything came out and it blew out of me, like it's this explosion. And this is how healing works. It's just like finally the next stage, the next level. And what you deny completely is that no, there's always like the other side of this. With every huge pleasure comes like the downside or the shadow of also like huge pain, and this huge intensity as well. You stay in this intensity in your life, and you create life circumstances that have this kind of intensity that matches your trauma frequency. And so being aware of the utility, I would say, of staying in this loop and being in these emotions, and actually recognizing you're staying safe right now. You're just doing what feels most safe for your system, which is staying in this loop and over focusing on the past. And you've done it probably for many times, and you think you've succeeded because you had these explosions, you've had these high peak experiences, and because you've had those, this is proof for your system that, see, I'm making progress. But when there's a lot of progress actually in recognizing why you stay there, the utility, as I mentioned, and in subtlety, like in subtle decisions and being with the pain afterwards, being with the emotions afterwards, making a decision, allowing joy, and then also allowing what comes with it and the resistance to it, which is, I think, like two important points.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And while I was feeling into how it feels to be in that kind of energy of, I need to heal, and in this whole loop, what it felt like when I tuned in was that it feels really, really harsh, actually. Like so many times, especially the more we learn about concepts like people pleasing, being a nice guy, a nice girl, or I have this and that trauma, it's almost like we're self diagnosing the entire time. And the faculty, the part within us that is self diagnosing, when I was tuning in, had a really, really harsh energy. It's almost self insulting to be like, oh fuck, I'm a people pleaser, and I really need to get over this. There's like a very, very subtle um, current of shame that is driving these decisions. And I also like how reframed the question, like, where is this coming from, and rather asking, um, like, how is it that this is happening, not exactly asking why, but more how. And also in parts language, a really interesting question that you can very practically ask yourself in almost every circumstance in your life is not why or how is this happening to me, but who is actually online right now. Like, to whom inside of me is this happening? For example, if I think, oh, I need to heal more, what part of me is sending me these thoughts? And then you might find out that on your healing journey, the part of you that is telling you, you need to do more, you need to read this book, this, blah, 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 all of these things, is actually more an inner critic that needs healing in of itself. So, and let's assume this inner critic was healed, so to speak, or that inner critic got a better job, like got the real, got to a place where what he's doing has real value for your life. It's actually improving your life. What would be different then? Then you probably wouldn't be so stuck on or so gung ho about, yeah, I need to heal, and I'm on this journey, and this is what I need to do, this and that. So it's actually like how do you know you're looping? You're asking yourself how I'm feeling. Is there contraction or expansion in my body? And also, am I being nice and warm towards myself? And if the answer is no, then also from a parts work standpoint, you can say you're not connected with self energy, like with self compassion, with curiosity, with with all of the things that a healthy sense of self entails. And you're probably more associated with like an inner critic and an energy that needs to be looked at in of itself.
Yeah, definitely. One important thing that I will never forget that I read once in a blog article of the Kilo Bee inquiries, where I also did a mentoring, was the need to know is a trauma response. And you can apply that to like the need to heal is a trauma response. And how did I interpret that? I don't know how this person who wrote this blog post meant it, but how I interpreted it was that, there is a certain energy in the body. And if you don't like the word energy, use like sensation. There's a certain sensation in the body that speaks out almost like this sentence or this command. Even it's a command more than a sentence. It's like, you need to hear, or you need to know more, you need to know more, you need to know more. And then you can identify this sensation within you, like probably unfortunately, maybe, or however you want to call it, something like that energy caused you to listen to this podcast today. There chances are high that you didn't, listen to this podcast because you were like, oh, I enjoy listening to these people. Let's see what they have to say. Chances are high it's something more like, okay, you need to know more. You need to know more. I need to know more about healing. Yeah, these guys are talking about healing. I need to know. And so for me, for example, I could feel it in my chest. I could sometimes feel it in my belly, these commands. And it's similar to, I need to be on the phone. if you're conscious in that moment. I need to go to the phone now. I need to look something up on the phone. I need to know. And it's happening in a rapid fire. It's like it's constantly there. It's like doom, 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 doom. I need to know. I need to heal. And now what pathwork is about, and what healing is about in this case, is, can you change your relationship to this part? Can you be with this part without just following the command? Can you be like, oh, first of all, I'm going to listen. I'm going to take on the frequency. I'm going to do something that we call in the trainings body-mind mirroring. So my body says something, but my mind is not conscious of it. But now I'm just going to make conscious what I just did, like through listening to me and doing this, you probably become more conscious of it. You feel the sensation and you're like, I'm just going to pretend this sensation is telling me right now something like, you need to know more. 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 And what's happening is space is created in my body because my body and my mind are more aligned. Actually, my mind is just repeating what my body says. This creates alignment and truth. And we're not trying to change anything, because the change happens by itself once the process unfolds and is able to, move through you, instead of this misalignment between these two things. And you just blindly follow this part. You're not really there with it. You're not really like, and I sometimes imagine like a father who sits down with his son and is like, I'm going to listen to you now. When the son says, go, jump out the window, you're not going to like go and jump out the window. You're going to sit there and listen and be like, oh, okay, I see you want me to jump out the window. There must be something there. There must be a lot of anger there, or sadness, or whatever. I'm here with you to see this, to feel this. This is a loving approach to this command sensation or command energy within you.
Yes, I agree with that. I think I partly want to add something to it, if not debate what you just said, because I think, for example, a need to know something or a need to heal can actually come from a very healthy energy. For example, if I'm just curious and I'm like, oh, I need to know that, like I need to find out, and it's like a healthy sense of mission or purpose, curiosity, things like this. Or I need to heal. Like if you're listening right now and you have crippling chronic pain, or you have chronic fatigue, and you cannot get out of bed, then I would wish for you that you have a part inside of you that says, oh, this needs to stop. I need to heal. But of course, it's it's super important in these moments to listen and feel into the sensations that come up when you say these sentences. When you say, I need to heal, like literally when you're in a conversation and you listen to yourself saying, I need to heal, what does it feel like in your body? Because I don't think the problem is the sentence, but rather the emotional current that is expressed through that sentence. And also, if you're listening, maybe you will go about your day in the next days and you will know, oh yeah, Jannick said something about this thing about I need to heal. And then you catch yourself thinking that sentence, or you catch yourself in that energy. And I invite you to be really mindful with what you do next, because the last thing we want to do is create another narrative that you need to get rid of this, oh, I need to know, or I need to heal kind of energy. Like this is a trap that you might fall into because you clicked on a podcast to find out more, and through us, we are not trying to imprint or implant new thoughts within you, or we don't want to imprint more problems within you. This is all an invitation to be more investigative, but not through asking more, like getting more knowledge for that sense, but just to be to develop the ability to be with something, like to be present with something. Because anything you hear on a podcast, like whenever you hear like a new concept, you will have these filter glasses on that you will look at yourself through. And I'm inviting you, even with what we're talking about here, to be investigative about that and be gentle with yourself. Like there's nothing you need to heal. You need to heal, and if you want to heal something, then we wish the best for you. We want to support you in that. But there's nothing wrong with you fundamentally. Like you're okay the way you are.
Yeah, exactly. Like to become less and less pathologizing is so important in the healing space. In like when you look at psychotherapy as well, there's so many categories, so many labels, so many things that, like you said, create issues by calling it that thing, calling it that name. And then not only it causes an issue of like, oh no, I have this, now I have this disease. And yes, of course there are exceptions, and sometimes it's important to have a name for it so that you can like do science on it and do studies on it and like, get experience. And at the same time, you can also have another perspective of getting rid of this and loosening the grip on these labels, and just work more with like a spectrum, where like each and every one is somewhere on the spectrum for any of those labels. And you just become, like you said, like a curious child. Curiosity is one of the qualities of the self, capital S self, in parts work. And if you are connected to that curiosity, you will know this is not a command. This feels more like freedom, more like joyful exploration of life. And then you joyfully explore, maybe joy is even a bit too much, peacefully, calmly explore these energies within you. And yes, I love what you said there about getting rid of more and more concepts. In my life, I explored a lot of concepts, I would say. But at some point, it didn't become about the concepts anymore. It's more like, I'm like, when I do my self-investigation in the morning or self-inquiry, I'm more like, okay, let's see what my body has to say today. Like, the practice is just like listening to my body, and it goes beyond my body, but the body is the instrument through which I perceive life. But in more like in general terms, it's let's see what life, how can I listen to life? How can I listen to what certain relationships tell me, what they do in my body, what my body does if I think about something specific that causes me like emotional pain or fear or whatever it is. And I am here with it, and like try to be as loving and meet this as lovingly as possible. And this is the practice. And then you of course need to be able to be with very intense energies, because the more safe you feel doing that, and that's also why it can be really helpful to be with a practitioner, because they create an extra layer of safety. The more safe you feel doing that, the more stuff will come up to be with lovingly. And this is a simple way of describing healing. And you don't need to look in the past for that, because all the information is in your body anyways, and is in the present moment, and is in your life, encoded in your relationships with your parents, with your partner, with your friends, in your behavior, everyday behavior, in what stresses you. This was one of the main questions we had in the intake form for the emotional release training. Is like, what causes the most stress in your life? Just like that. You don't need a method. You look at that and you see what, like you said earlier, Tim, what your body does, how your body reacts.
You mean I should answer the question now? Is that what you want?
No. I didn't ask a question, but I can ask you a question if you want.
No. I thought I'm supposed to answer the intake form question. What is causing you the most stress right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Everybody at home, you should definitely consider, asking yourself this question.
Yeah. Also, I was just, behind the scenes. Obviously, the three of us were also facilitating. I just came home, I held space at a retreat. It was a very profound experience. And as you all know, we're starting also a training where you can learn all of these skills that we talk about and actually facilitate on clients if you're already an established healer in the field. And really, the more I do the work, I'm doing this since 5 years now, and it doesn't get boring. That's the first thing. And what I'm more and more learning to respect the pace of the psyche. I feel like the more as a facilitator also, and if you're not a facilitator, you can see yourself sort of as a facilitator for yourself, because this is also true in the relationship to yourself. But I'm talking about facilitators. The more you try to force your client into the ideas that you have in your mind and try to move your client towards a certain outcome or a certain epiphany or anything like that, the more the client will, or the less the psyche of the client will feel respected, and the more it will contract. So this humbleness towards whatever is showing up by itself, that's also something that I so often tell clients is, when you do parts work or when you do self-inquiry, like really ask like if you're in touch with a feeling and you want to know more about the feeling, literally ask the feeling and see what happens. Like sadness, hey sadness, what role are you playing here? Like, what is it that you have to tell me? And then literally the sadness will respond within you. And this is this mechanism of, you ask your body, you ask your subconscious mind, and it will generate ideas all by itself without you doing anything, is for me the next stage of healing and also of non-duality and meditation. Because if you perceive yourself as detached from your thoughts and you're not identified with your thoughts, then you develop the ability to see whatever is arising from your subconscious mind. And you can work with that, like literally. And what that means is you're giving up control. You're letting go of every concept of what this process could mean, where it could go, and you literally just ask and receive the answer. And the most, whenever that concept clicks for client, and in the session we get to a place where they can receive in that way, they always, it's always gold. Like they come up with knowledge that is so full of wisdom that they always say, like, I couldn't have made this up myself. And you're the thing is, you're not making this up yourself, because if you leave this whole thing of I need to heal and like all of these very tight and tightly clenched beliefs that you have about yourself, and you just sit down and be like, okay, let's assume I know nothing about myself, but my body and my subconscious mind simultaneously contains everything that I need to know. You step back. That's also an IFS intervention that you can do at home. You tell the part that you're entangled with to take 2 steps back, and you literally ask, and you see what happens. And something will happen. Either a memory will arise, a feeling will arise. And the cool thing is that even if it doesn't make sense, just act as if it's important and meaningful.
Yeah.
And this is like when we talk about the training, this is one of the core, one of the fundamental things that you will learn.
Yes, definitely. And here also, I want to make that connection to what we said and what you said, especially Tim, in the beginning of you came to this place where you don't want to look at the past so much. And when we talk about this, we are looking at the past, because obviously the result of how your body feels right now is coming from the past. But at the same time, we are not creating any stories. We don't have to about the past. We just look at what is. And now comes the important point. We don't want to stop there. Okay, so we don't want to just come in. And this is something we teach our clients as well and our students. is we don't want to come in and be like, oh, okay, what's here? What's arising? Because that sometimes can just be what feels most safe for the client. So this can actually like be like a loop that comes up. The client goes into sadness over and over and over and over again because anger just doesn't feel safe enough. We also want to then be like asking that question that you brought up earlier: where do you want to be? How do you want your life to look like? How does success look like in your life? When, like, what do you want to achieve? And then something will come up, and maybe it will be, I have no idea. And then what's the emotion behind that? Sadness, or it's always actually the moving away from anger. And it's like, because you can't get angry, you can't know what you want in life, because those two are very much connected. And then you come into the more and more unsafe layers. And by asking these questions of what do you want, or what if I gave you this right now, what you want is true right now. And then you look at what feelings and emotions come up. And this is one step further. First where you are with what is, then you also go with where you want to be. And there's going to be a gap, and there's going to be a reason for that gap, because you're not emotionally ready maybe for this gap to be closed. But the first step for that is to become conscious of the emotions that are between you right now and that future version of you that you want to become. And we also teach this kind of work. And this is so powerful. This is like magic, because this is closing the gap between who you are right now and who you want to be, to have a joyful, successful, happy life, whatever it is that you envision for yourself.
Yeah. I really like what you shared there. And I think I have two things that I want to say to this. The one thing is that I liked how you made that link to what I was sharing in the beginning about me being more future oriented, because I'm in the process. Like I'm just trying to I'm in the process of realizing that this is what's happening in my life, that I'm less focused on the past. But I just realized about myself that it's not even that I'm less focused on the past. It's more like I'm less entangled with it. Like my past and all of the parts and all of the trauma and all of the tension, like all of this stuff, it's still there. It's like still has rooms in the house of my life. It's more also with what I was just describing. I was disentangling it, and now I am able to have a relationship with it, and I can literally talk to whatever when a part is enraged or hurt or feels ashamed. I can talk to them, ask them what they need, ask them what their role is or whatever, and I can give them what they want. So that's the one thing. And I appreciate what you said about the more in systems thinking, it's called solution focused thinking. And I also feel that this is super important. And again, in the processes with my clients, like a central role to ask yourself, and you can do this at home, like be very courageous and ask yourself, what would be there if your problem was gone? What would be there if your chronic pain wasn't there? How would you know your problem is solved? How could you tell, like in your body, emotionally, what would change? And then you might say, yeah, I would be less tense. Okay. But what would be there instead of the tension? And then it's like, oh, I think I would feel more like my chest would be a bit more open, my neck would be more relaxed, and there would be energy flowing through my back. And then discovering that, okay, and when your chest is open, what thoughts are going through your head? Yeah, I would feel more free. I would have more possibilities. And the moment you inquire about what would be there if your problem was gone, you simultaneously inquire about your potential. And it's way easier to be on this whole journey with your potential on your side, because it has a somatic imprint as well. Not only not only the dark stuff, also all of the good stuff that you've buried has already a place in your body, already has a room in the house of your body. And sometimes all you need to do is like open the door, and ask yourself, like, how would it be like if this was present? And then this, whatever is showing here, a super powerful question that when you feel that and you're like, yeah, I would be more open, okay, and my friends probably would notice that my voice is dropping, and when my voice is dropping, I could feel my stomach more, would be more relaxed, and you could just feel like this juicy feeling of, oh, okay, this is what it might feel like. You can feel that in your body. And then ask yourself, if that feeling of expansion, of potential, was a part, if it had a form, a human form, or like an animal or whatever, how would it look like? And most times, it's something like a sage, like an old wise man, or a woman, or a mother, or a king, or something like that, like a deeply, deeply beautiful, beautiful image. And now imagine you have like whatever, like a wounded child you have, or whatever you associate with your pain. And in your mind, like in your imagination, and also energetically in your body, you allow these both, like one's, your potential and your pain, to meet each other and have a conversation. Like whenever that happens, it's like I'm getting shivers, because on the retreat I had several processes where this was so powerful. And I had a client who really was like, who went to the retreat and he said, nobody can help me. I've tried so many things. I think I'm completely lost. Like literally, he was like really like, his arms were crossed. Like, yeah, okay, show me. You can't help me anyways. I'm broken. Like he was really also, had a really brutal energy towards himself. And then all of a sudden, he started looping. In the moment, he realized that first of all, he needs to know what he wants, and that he wants is already an energetic imprint in his body and a part. And the part told him like beautiful, beautiful stuff about himself, that wisdom and the depth that he craves in life can coexist with ease and things like this. Like really, really beautiful. So whatever wisdom you crave is already within you.
I love this. I love this to be the closing words of this podcast episode. And if you resonated with what we shared today, with the somatic work, with less pathologizing, more looking into the body, into what's here right now, and becoming almost like this curious child that is here to experience joy and to find out about what our life is telling us about ourselves. And if you even want to go one step further, not only work on yourself, but also become a facilitator, then you might be interested in the training, and you can find more info down below in the link below this episode or this video, wherever you watch this or listen to it. And other than that, thank you so much, Tim, for being here with me today and dropping your wisdom bombs after this retreat. Really nice energy of the podcast today, and I think a lot to learn and then also practice for people at home. So I love the practicality in combination with the wisdom of this episode. That was fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Jannick. So that being said, enjoy the rest of your day. Don't overthink. Don't take this as a hint to solve whatever problems you have even more. We hope you live an easeful life and a life of beauty and meaning. And we want to support you in that. So we hope to see you sometime in the trainings. Goodbye.
Goodbye.